Hello and welcome to another edition of Executive Corner Expert Talks on 𝐊𝐿𝐴 TV. I'm James Preston, and in this edition we're taking an in-depth look at the world of sports commentary. Commentary has been a staple of sports broadcasting for 100 years since the first live commentary on radio in 1921. An award-winning sports presenter and commentator Michael Schiavello has recently released a book called The Commentators, which takes a look at the profession and how it has forever changed the way we consume sport. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to now welcome Michael to the show. Michael, hello.
James, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Michael, great to have you here with us. Without giving too much away, obviously The Commentators is about the art of sport commentary, but how do you approach that in the book? Is it a case of a historical timeline view, or do you break it down via specific commentators?
It's actually a little bit of both. I look at the history of sports commentary, which, as you mentioned, started on April 11, 1921, when a man named Florent Gibson, who was a journalist, a newspaper journalist in Philadelphia, attended a boxing event and called the first live radio commentary of this boxing event. And ever since then, of course, commentary has been the soundtrack of our lives for so many of us. And in the book, I look at the history, but also I break down over 60 of the greatest sports events throughout history and the commentators who made those events all the more exciting and emphatic and iconic, that have left an indelible imprint in our minds. So, you think of great World Cups and Rugby World Cups and cricket and Super Bowls and Stanley Cups and the NBA, and it's all in the book, breaking them down and the commentators associated with them.
Well, Michael, we'll get your take on the best piece of sports commentary a little later in the interview itself, because I know there are so many fantastic ones to choose from, which, as you mentioned there, they elevate the entire occasion. So it's always a fantastic treat when we get a particularly brilliant piece of commentary. But how did the idea come about for the book itself?
I've been a sports commentator, James, for 30 years, and besides loving my job as a commentator, I'm broadcast to over 154 countries. I just love the art of commentary. I love good commentary. Sometimes I'll watch a sport I'm not even interested in just to listen to the commentators and see how they do their jobs, and I'm blown away by, guys like Bruce McAvaney and the late 𝐊𝐴𝐺𝐤𝐢𝐧𝐞 and Dennis Kennedy and the late Richie Benaud, Bill Laurie, so many great Australian commentators in particular that we've had over the years. And when I was researching this book, I stumbled on that date that it was actually this year was celebrating the 100th anniversary. And I thought, wow, what better time to do a book about the profession of sports commentary than celebrating the 100 years. So, it took me about 9 months to write. The team at Wilkinson Publishing, who do some fantastic books, got right behind the idea. And we released only yesterday and already going guns blazing. And I'm really proud with it, because I think this is a lasting tribute to so many great commentators, both male and female, from all over the world, who have given myself, yourself, and all your viewers so many great memorable moments.
Yeah, spot on the money there. Now let's talk about your commentary experience yourself. You mentioned 30 years there. Well, within that space of time, you've won the equivalent of an Emmy in the Asian Television Awards for your commentary. So let's break it down a little bit. What sports do you commentate, and what, in your opinion, makes for a great commentator?
Well, I commentate mostly fight sports. My career began with track and field, and then moved into football, or commentary of soccer, football, and then moved into fight sports, something I fell into and I've been in ever since. So at the moment, I broadcast for Asia's largest sports media property called One Championship. We're Nielsen rated amongst the 4 most watched sports on the planet. I think we're only behind, I think it's EPL, IPL, NBA, and then it's us. So the ratings are massive, broadcast to 154 countries on terrestrial TV worldwide. And, I love it. We're doing shows every couple of weeks at the moment out of Singapore. I'm off again to Singapore in a couple of weeks' time. And I always try and do my best. And what I think, to answer your other question, makes a good sports commentary is you've got to be researched. You've got to know about what you're talking about, what sport you're doing, what athletes you're covering. You've got to know how to be a storyteller. It's very important to tell a story in any sort of media, but particularly as a sports commentator. But most of all, James, and I think this applies to any profession, especially the media profession, you need to have passion, you need to have enthusiasm, and you need to deliver with confidence. I always tell young up-and-coming sports commentators, you've got to own everything you say on radio, on television, on a podcast, whatever your platform may be. You've got to own it. Be confident, be enthusiastic, and make it yours. And I think they are the best attributes of a sports commentator. I asked this question in the book to the experts, guys like Vin Scully and Tim Neverett and BBC's John Murray and the great Peter Drury. And a lot of people think, well, you need a good voice first and foremost to be a commentator, but you really don't. And most of the experts agreed with me that passion and enthusiasm are the two main attributes to be good at pretty much anything in life, but especially at sports commentary.
So this is brilliant. Not only are we getting an insight on how to conduct proper sports commentary, this is basically like life lessons. It's like listening to Jordan Peterson at the moment. Clean your room. Make sure that you're getting everything right in your own life before you can progress. So I love it, mate. There's plenty of passion in what you're talking about. That is for sure. Now, another thing that I've noticed, certainly, and I think a lot of people would too, if they just, peel the curtain back a little bit and look at how commentary is done. In the last decade or so, we've seen some huge technological advancements on how it is actually conducted. Now, for those who aren't aware, could you go through some of the changes, whether it be commentating from a remote location or any other technological developments that have occurred in the space?
Well, it's really interesting, the developments that have happened over the last 18 months since the onset of COVID, because the whole sports commentary world, like the rest of the world, was just thrown into panic, to pandemonium. And we had to come to terms with how do we broadcast sport when we can no longer have full arenas. We at One Championship were actually the first sports organisation in February last year to do a closed door event. We were the litmus test for so many other sports organizations around the world. We did a closed door event at the Singapore Indoor Stadium that usually holds 16, 17,000 people. And once we did it successfully, the likes of WWE, NBA, NFL, EPL, IPL, all came on board and started doing closed door events. But the challenges are with commentators being in separate bubbles. I am isolated at these events from my co-commentator, so he's got to sit at a different part of the arena to me. He's using a remote camera in front of him. I'm using a remote camera in front of me. So there's no physical cameraman or camera person in front of us. The remote is being operated from a separate facility and it tracks us, which is what you're seeing on the television when we're hosting the event to you. Just a lot of complications we'd never had to deal with. And of course, when you're commentating with no live audience, and as commentators, James, we're used to feeding off the energy of the live audience.
Yep.
Without that there, when you could hear a pin drop, you've got to bring yourself still to the occasion. You can't do the proverbial, golf commentary where it's very silent, especially if you're doing an exciting sport like fighting or wrestling or, football or soccer. You've got to bring yourself to the occasion. So there were a lot of battles for commentators to overcome and for producers and directors to overcome who were forced to have their commentators work remotely. I've done commentary at home. The great Peter Drury, who commentated the UEFA Euro Championships last month, who did all the EPL last year, the Champions League last year. Well, he says in the book that he was commentating most of it from his bedroom at home with his family in the next room. I mean, this is broadcast to millions worldwide. The greatest sports commentator on the planet, Peter Drury, in soccer, was commentating in his bedroom. So these are the sorts of issues we've had to overcome.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. I mean, we often talk about, in radio shows, if there's a breakfast program, for example, and, maybe Kyle and Jack Yeo, he heads off to Queensland, and then they do it remotely via tie line. So the chemistry can sometimes be quite difficult in that sense, but it's a whole new kettle of fish, really, because you're talking there about the lack of an audience, which gives so much the overall sound output and the audio quality and the commentary itself. One thing we have seen, for example, is, especially in the NRL, they've been bringing in, for example, crowd sound effects on Fox Sports. Do you like that development, or for you, is it more a case of should we leave it as it is?
You know what? We never used it at One Championship, and it's a shame we haven't, because I do quite like it depending on the sport. I like it for football, for soccer. I think it's worked very well for soccer because you're used to the sound. The sound of a crowd in an indoor stadium is different to the sound of a crowd in a soccer outdoor stadium where you've got 50, 60,000 people at a Premier League game. They used it for the Major League Baseball last year, of course, and one of the contributors to the book is Tim Neverett. Now, Tim was the announcer of the LA Dodgers who won the World Series in 2020, and he talks at depth in the book about the problems he had to overcome as a World Series winning announcer commentating the LA Dodgers and getting used to the piped sound they'd use at Dodger Stadium, getting used to the piped sound that he'd be brought in over his headphones from other stadiums around America when he was commentating remotely, and also getting used to seeing fake cutout audiences in the crowd at Dodger Stadium, which he wasn't used to. And of course, problems with tracking the ball when you're not in the stadium, you can't see the ball and it goes off shot, off camera, and the director's not quick enough to catch it. I mean, there were so many difficulties, but someone like Tim Neverett, someone like Peter Drury, John Murray are all just such professionals. They overcame it, but it's definitely been a challenge.
Now, Michael, for me, my favourite piece of commentary comes from a classic NRL match between South and the Roosters, where Warren Smith describes a match-winning try with, "You can take me now, I've seen it all." Now, what for you is the single best piece of commentary that's ever been delivered?
It is such a hard question to answer, James, because there are so many. The one for me, there's only one piece of commentary in the book that I say is the perfect commentary in history. It's by a guy named Vin Scully. Vin Scully had a 67-year career calling baseball for the LA Dodgers, who before them were the Brooklyn Dodgers. But in 1965, he called Sandy Koufax's perfect game. And it's on YouTube. Check it out. It goes for 8 minutes 45. It's 1,064 words of sheer perfection from Vin Scully. This guy is such a legend that President Obama awarded him the highest award for an American citizen, that being Presidential Medal of Freedom. He's got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Dodger Stadium in LA is located on Vin Scully Avenue, and the character Dana Scully on the X-Files was actually named by Chris Carter as Dana Scully because of Vin Scully. And I'm so happy that Vin Scully, and I'm not being biased here, but he is also a contributor to the book. He's now 94 years old, and he is voted by the American Sportscasters Association as the greatest commentator of all time. So go to YouTube, check it out. It's there. Sandy Koufax's perfect game, 1965, Cubs versus Dodgers, and it's sheer commentary perfection.
Well, Michael, I'll absolutely be checking that out. And just before I let you go, how can we check out the book? Where can we get the commentators?
Please do check it out, guys. You are going to love it no matter what sport you like. It's available through all good booksellers right now. Go to Booktopia, Book Depository, Amazon, wilkinsonpublishing.com.au. Where the good books are found or sold, you'll find the commentators, and I really do hope you enjoy it because commentary really has been the soundtrack of our lives.
Absolutely. Michael, been great to have a chat with you, and I understand you do have some duties with Singapore, so we'll have to let you go so you can get through all the testing there for yet another remote broadcast, but hopefully that all goes well, and hopefully we can also have another chat quite soon.
James, thank you, mate. It'll be my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me on 𝐾ALCON TV.
That's Michael Schiavello, an award-winning sports presenter and author of The Commentators. And if you missed any part of that interview or you'd like to browse our extensive catalogue of expert talks, simply head across to the YouTube channel 𝐾ALCON Media. I'm James Preston, signing off for 𝐾ALCON.